Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen James, the channel that brings you your team every day, guys. We give you lots of Rangers content, all for free. We don't charge you for any content here on the channel. It is free, guys. Just obviously hit that sub, ring that notification bell, then you will never ever miss out. Right, look, what's the latest? I'm trying to focus on next season a little bit. Trying to get away from the depression of this season because it's not been great, has it? It's not getting any better. In fact, it's getting worse, if anything. And the team on Saturday were absolutely dreadful. And you had Dessers Van Vossen miss. Dessers the guy who I think would, if we did transfer him to another club, would probably miss the flight to go and sign his deal and then miss his contract when he tried to sign it. The guy's just an absolute comedian. He's not a footballer, is he? Let's face it. So there we go. Let's talk a little bit about what this latest thing. So the latest story is around the Red Bull connection to Rangers. So what is this Red Bull connection to Rangers? Now, it isn't obviously that Red Bull are going to make Rangers part of the Red Bull group. Obviously, we know that around the world there are a number of Red Bull teams. RB Leipzig, for example, in Germany, RB Salzburg. In Austria, there's the RB New York, the New York Red Bull team. There is a number, obviously, of Red Bull teams around the world, and they have a very distinct identity. They have a very distinct way of playing. They have a very distinct philosophy. They have a very distinct way of working. That's how they are. They have very much a kind of trading model kind of setup. They bring in youth players. They develop them. They all have very well funded and well coached and organised academies. That is the Red Bull way. That is the way they've chosen to go. Like I said, FC Red Bull of Salzburg, RB Leipzig, New York Red Bulls. There's a number, obviously, of those Red Bull teams. Now, Rangers have in the past had some links with the RB brand in terms of, some of their youngsters coming across to our academy, some of our academy youngsters going to their academy. It was a very sort of loose tie-up when Zeb Jacobs was involved with the club. Now, the takeover, obviously, which is in the process of kind of being finalised, although I'm sure, Declan from the East End will tell us otherwise, is very much based on the fact, obviously, the 49ers are going to take over the club, that they are going to hold a majority stake with Andrew Kavanagh. Now, Red Bull and the 49ers already have a sporting relationship, and obviously not that the 49ers are part of any sort of Red Bull group. That's not the way it works. It's very much the situation that Red Bull are a minority stakeholder in Leeds United. They also sponsor Leeds United shirts. They invest in the club. They have an informal involvement in Leeds United. So what does this mean for Rangers? Well, there are reports emanating from Scotland and from England and from Austria and from a number of other sources across the world that RB will soon be the sponsors of Rangers. That is the talk. So that Red Bull will be the front of shirt sponsors for Rangers. So the same way that the Red Bull logo, which you can see on the screen now, I'm not advertising Red Bull, guys. There are other energy drinks available. I do like a Red Bull, actually. So Red Bull, if you want to sponsor me, feel free. Rangers will soon have Red Bull on the front of their shirts, and they will be the shirt sponsors. Now, according to reports, this deal will be a very, very lucrative one for Rangers, and will pump severe amounts of money into the club. Now, I've heard as much as 45 million over 3 years. That was the initial talk. But any deal apparently will be front-loaded so that the money that comes in from this shirt sponsorship deal can be put towards squad building in the summer, with the new owners realising what an absolute shit show the current squad are and what a major overhaul is needed by whoever the new manager will be. Now, obviously, Marco Rosa has becoming the bookies' short-term favourite. I'm also going to address the man in the picture as well, as Mr. Steven Gerrard. There is more talks about him as well this morning or this afternoon, depending on when you're obviously watching the video. So, like I said, reports do indicate that Red Bull will be the shirt sponsors for Rangers as they are at Leeds United. This is all part of the growing sort of informal links between Red Bull and Rangers. If you look at the situation that we are currently have at the club, obviously Kevin Thelwell has been appointed as the new sporting director. Kevin Thelwell has got vast experience at working within the Red Bull group. He worked obviously at New York Red Bulls during his time as recruitment and scouting director at Red Bull New York. So he has links to Red Bull. Obviously, the 49ers enterprises have links to Red Bull through the Red Bull minority stake in Leeds United. Marco Rosa, who has been heavily linked with the club, also is another guy who has come through and worked for Red Bull twice, once at Salzburg, once at Leipzig. So it is definitely the case. So let's have a little look at this, shall we? So it is part of this desire, I think, to bring in external investment by the 49ers group. They want to bring in enough external investment. They want to bring in external revenue streams, and they see the Red Bull shirt sponsorship and possibly, I suppose, down the line, Red Bull investment in the club as a good way of bringing in extra investment to Rangers. I mean, personally, I have absolutely no objections whatsoever to Red Bull getting involved with Rangers. Like I said, they already have a role, within the. They already have a role within Leeds. They have a role within football. They have already shown that they can be responsible owners. I know they're hated in Germany, but let's face it, that was because the ownership model moved outside of the traditional German ownership model, and also the way that they kind of went about changing the club. Scottish, a number of insiders have indicated that, like I said, the club will soon have investment from Red Bull within them. Now, according to other reports this morning, Rangers apparently are obviously very focused on bringing in a new manager. This is a massive need for the club. We need a real manager. We haven't got a manager at the moment. We have got a manager at the moment of sorts. He's an interim manager. He isn't up to the job. 36 win. I mean, let's face it. Anyone who's got a 36% win ratio as manager of Rangers, quite frankly, is not up to the job. He's tactically naive. His in-game management is poor. His use of substitutions is poor. He's over love for Cyril Dessers and James Tavernier is baffling. His team selections are weird. He's unprofessional in post-match interviews. He's just not up to the job. So, and there's obviously a number of candidates out there. Now, I think we all know that the 49ers will already be undertaking work to look for a new manager. Other reports this morning are saying that Greta Steinson, who is, of course, the sporting director of Leeds United, but apparently also has a sporting director role within the 49ers Enterprises group already, and they listen to Steinson when it comes to football decisions because he is the man in the know. He's a guy who knows the sport. He's played the sport. He's been involved in it, obviously through his work as a sporting director. Now, Steinson apparently has scoured the globe and is also looking for managerial candidates to support the managerial recruitment process at Rangers. Now, a lot of people now are indicating that obviously Marco Rosa is very highly favoured by the owners due to his Red Bull links, due to the work that he's done in Germany. I've got to say, I did find some of the comments this morning funny that he's achieved nothing as manager Dortmund or Leipzig. I think it's worth remembering that in the last 25 titles that have been won in Germany, 23 of them have been won by Bayern Munich. I think, to say that he's achieved nothing is just quite bizarre. Bayern Munich's domination of that league is absolutely massive. If you don't manage Bayern Munich, you tend not to win very much out there. Bayer Leverkusen last season was a one-off, was pretty much a one-off. If you look at the last 10 years, one team that is not Bayern Munich, e.g. Bayer Leverkusen, have won the title. So, it's a bit of a weak argument to say that he's achieved nothing. It is very hard to achieve anything in that league over there if you're not Bayern Munich. Now, according to the report, Steven Gerrard is still being heavily linked with the job as well. He is still very much a name on the cards that the 49ers and Andrew Kavanagh are all looking at Steven Gerrard as a possible candidate for the job. I think, that again will be a move that, along like with the Rosa move, would split the fan base. I've seen from the video this morning how the fan base is split over this. I think a return of Steven Gerrard is another one that will split the fan base. Gerrard, obviously, when he was manager of Rangers, did very well. He won 55, he was undefeated. He took the team from being in a bad way. He made the team progress. He basically got the team to have a style, a shape. He got the squad fit. He got the squad hungry. He had a good record against Celtic. He did a lot of good work when he was here. Now, obviously, the way he left did leave a little bit of a sour taste in people's mouths. I do think, though, that the people who kind of criticised the way he left you've got to kind of look at the situation that he was in. Post 55, he had them again top of the league and obviously looking like they could go on and win another title. But, as he said, post 55, now is the time to fix the roof while the sun is shining. And, Douglas Park, again, let the club down. He didn't back his manager. He didn't give the manager the money to really, go on to the next level. And I think, Douglas Park, carried a lot of blame for what happened with Gerrard. I mean, I honestly believe, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I do believe that if Gerrard had been given money and had been given the tools that he needed and wanted, he would have stayed at the club longer. I don't think he would have walked to Villa at that point in the season. He may have gone at the season's end. That's a possibility. You don't tend to turn down English Premier League jobs, but I think he would have remained at least for the rest of the season, and I think we very well could have gone on to win at least another league title at that point. I do think the way that Douglas Park let him down, and Douglas Park continued to do that with Gio Van Bronckhorst, as we've seen, the players that Gio wanted, he didn't get either. Yes, some of them were loan players like Crescencio Summervelli and Matson, for example, Xavi Simons, for example, who would have made huge impact in Scotland. But look, at the end of the day, I think Gerrard is... people have said, well, what's he achieved since he left Rangers? Well, I think, Villa, yes, was a disaster. I'll give you that one. The Saudi experiment, I think you can just write off because that league is just bloody weird anyway. I mean, it's just a random, really strange league. You've got to look at his track record in Scotland, his track record with Rangers, and he has a good track record with Rangers. Like I said, he did the things that we want a manager to do. He made us hard to beat. He won games. He gave us a style of play. He gave us a shape. He gave us an aggression. He gave us a sense of belief. All the things that we wanted from a Rangers manager to do. So I think to kind of slag him off and criticise him is a little bit out of order, to be perfectly honest with you, with what he did for the club. So, look, I mean, if it is truly between Rossa and Gerrard as to who will be the manager, then, look, I mean, personally, I would go for Rossa. I think he's the better option. But, look, at the end of the day, I'm sure that the 49ers group and Andrew Kavanagh, along with Greta Steinson and Kevin Thelwell, will make the right decision. And I think the news about Red Bull is very positive. Guys, let me know what you think of this news. As always, guys, on the way out even, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember always, guys, we are the people.